ladies and gentlemen. Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome back in to Obie's Cards here at the Card Vault, where we're always poor, never bored. Usually we do sports cards. It's been one of the main things we started with. We've done a lot of Star Wars cards though, and done some Star Trek stuff that I've opened I haven't really shown. And we're going to be doing some other weirder things. Done a video with the tattoo flashcards. That's going to be up soon. That was really fun. And by the way, I'm going to try to upload that video first, because we talked about allowing Bryson and my wife to pick one of the tattoo flashcards that I was going to get tattooed on myself, and we were going to frame that card, and then I would have the actual tattoo. And it's because they would have a say in something that I would have on my body permanently. I have tattoo for my son on my back. I'm going to get a tattoo for my wife on my leg. She and I have already talked about that and know what it's going to be. It's going to be really cool. I'll show it off one day when I get it done. It's probably going to be about a year before I get that one done, though. I'm still going to work on this arm, because as you can see now, this arm is, except for my elbow, totally blacked out down to my hand. And again, I just want to say, if you're thinking about getting a blackout tattoo, think very hard. Use it as a cover-up of a lot of bad tattoos, or use it because you really want that aesthetic, you want that look. I wanted that aesthetic, I wanted that look, I wanted it to be very bold, right in your face. So when I'm wearing a t-shirt or wearing one of my tank tops, you can see that my whole arm is dark, it's blacked out. It's got a lot of different meanings to me. I don't have to explain them all. I don't care what other people think about it, and that's what you should always worry about when you get a tattoo. I don't care what other people think. I only care what I think. If it looks good to me, it looks good to me. I'm not going to worry about other people's opinions. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have gotten these either. So, but again, like I said, the tattoo thing that I had Bryson and him do, we opened the cards up, me and Bryson, last night. Some of them were a little bit inappropriate, but he's 5. I think it just kind of, a lot of it went over his head. He doesn't think twice about stuff like that right now. If he was 12 years old, he'd have been giggling, because a couple of them had me giggling, but I couldn't really show that to him. But they did pick a tattoo last night. They picked one of the cards, and together they thought it was an awesome one. Now, it's not going to be an easy tattoo to do. Hopefully my girl Lex can pull it off over at Tattoo Therapy. I've seen a lot of her work. I think that she can pull it off. It'll be something fun for her, because she says the blackout tattoo, she doesn't like to do them. Not a lot of tattoo artists like to do a blackout tattoo. Number one, it's very painful for the client. Number two, it takes multiple sessions. You have to go over the areas multiple times, causing even more pain to your client. It causes scar tissue. Blackout tattoo can make it hard for a dermatologist to detect melanoma on the skin, because the skin is already dark. So and it's so tedious for them, because it's just the same thing over and over and over again. So imagine if you're an artist, which tattoo artists are artists in one shape, form, or whatever you want to say. For them, it's no way to really express themselves. It's, imagine if just Pablo Picasso just took a blank canvas and just painted it black. Now, I know there are artists who have done that and gotten away with it and made a lot of money doing it. Whatever, that's artist subjective. But for somebody that's a tattoo artist, that they make their living on people seeing their work and wanting to go get work done by them because, hey, they've done great work, for them to just do a blackout it's not really any kind of artistic expression or showing any real talent on their part. However, to do a blackout tattoo properly is not easy. It is very difficult to do because of a thing called saturation. You have to get the color into the skin properly, saturated properly, so that it looks kind of even. And if you can look down here where we've gone over it, but my arm, it looks very even and black. And the hairs are what you're kind of seeing there reflecting in the light, my arm hair. but she done such a great job with the saturation and having it look all one color. And there's some areas here where we just got done on the last session. You can kind of tell a little bit darker, but they'll fade and mix in with the other black on my arm. So, but yeah, I started looking into it about a year ago, and I watched some videos of a couple people who have the blackout tattoos, and I just thought they looked awesome, you know, mixed in with all their other art on their bodies. And, you know, there's some tattoos that I just was like, you know, I don't want to see those anymore. I don't, you know, particularly like them very much. I rushed them. It wasn't my artist's fault. I was somebody that wanted to go in there every 5 to 6 weeks and get a new tattoo. And eventually I was like, you know what? I want that black aesthetic. These will be the ones that we cover up. And that's what I did. So without further delay, the tattoo that Bryson and Natalie picked for me to be getting is this one, the Portal. Looks like a traditional Japanese tiger flying through a portal. So this one's going to be a challenge. I hope Lex is up to it. I think she is. She's a great artist. I've seen her work. So hopefully she can put this one on me. I'm gonna aim for my right calf. The back of my right calf is where this one will be. And then we're gonna frame this card. I'm gonna have Bryson and Natalie write something on a little card in it too that said, you know, we picked Daddy's tattoo or something like that. But yeah, this one was the one Bryson really liked the most, and then Natalie herself, she had to agree with Bryson. So the artist is Tom. Again, these are Flash Friends tattoo cards done by Crocodile Jackson. He's a tattoo artist himself. He gathered up a bunch of artists and had them do the Flash tattoos for this card set. And I did not know it, but I started looking last night, and these are pretty rare, pretty valuable cards. And I have, after looking at the values of them, some pretty valuable Flash tattoo cards now. So those will be for sale at my eBay store. If you would like to have one yourself, like this one is extremely, it's very rare. I couldn't even find one for sale online. It's a gold star one, which means it's extremely rare. Like I said, Tengu Mask by Horifuku is, I'm guessing, a Japanese artist. And it's definitely a traditional Japanese looking tattoo, but it is awesome looking tattoo. Kind of wish they'd have picked that one. It might have been a little bit, I don't know. But I'm going to get the one that they picked. I told them I would. I told them I just backed up and let them pick. So again, there's value in cards. There are a lot of different collectible cards other than just, you know, baseball and football and basketball. Even though those are the more common ones, those are the ones that are extremely hot right now. People are buying, especially the new ones. And I've got a great mail day coming. I'm trying not to give too much away and smile too much about it, but I decided that I was going to see what the break videos were all about. And Fanatics, like I said a couple weeks ago, Fanatics bought out the NFLPA. So they took it away basically from Panini. And Fanatics is really making a lot of moves. Of course, they own Topps. And Topps Chrome Cosmic Baseball just came out. A gorgeous set of baseball cards. Because y'all seen me pull a lot of Topps Chrome baseball cards. They're gorgeous. I've pulled a lot of Topps regular baseball cards. I really like those. I'm a Topps fan. Always have been. But Fanatics has an app now available on the Apple Store where you can actually just download the app, put in your credit card information, and go right into break videos. And they have auctions, pick your team kind of things. You can do a personal break where you can pay. I saw a guy pay $2,200 yesterday to just do a case of Star Wars Galaxy cards. Star Wars Galaxy cards are the most expensive Star Wars cards out there made by Topps. And he opened the entire case for one person live. And we all sat there and watched. Well, I think there's about 40 of us that sat there and watched it. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so you know I watched it. And he ended up getting probably about $4,000 or $5,000 worth of cards out of that case, including an extremely rare gold Princess Leia. I think it was worth almost $3,000 by itself, $2,500 to $3,000. But I just kind of dipped my toes into it. I've heard about that stuff. I kind of was very critical of it. Initially, when I started this channel, I was really, really critical of it. But I probably spent about $300 to $400 of my own money. So my wife's going to see this and be like, right. Well, we've talked about it. She's not going to be that angry. She knows. And she knows what the rewards were. And I'm just going to say, when mail day comes for the stuff that I won, it is going to be the best cards I've ever had in my entire life. Period. The most expensive, the most rare, the coolest. I mean, and I've got cards that go all the way back into the 50s. I've got rookie football player cards from 1959 that I just, started seeing again for the first time after going through things. So, like, there's going to be some stuff when I do a mail day video that I think is really going to, maybe sway some of you to say, you know what, instead of me going out to the card shop and buying $100 worth of boxes and maybe getting, 2 or 3 good cards and not getting my money back, whereas you can go onto a site like Fanatics, like that app, and maybe spend $50 into a break, and your $50 turns into $100 or $200, and then they just mail it to you. You don't have to go to the store. You don't have to buy anything immediately, or like I said, buy the box there. And there's a community built around it. You can chat with people. There's a guy named Dougie from Pull Wax. He friended me on Instagram too afterwards. He and I have talked. I've gone on there. I've just watched his live streams just where he's pulling, and just chatted with him on there. I don't really hang out with a lot of people during the day. I take my son to school. I come home and I work on this. This is my passion right now. I'm trying to get this YouTube channel up and running, and trying to show people that there's more to sports cards than just baseball, football, basketball. There's a large world of collectible stuff out there card wise, and I love to collect cards. Period. Like I said, the tattoo cards was extremely rare. Not a lot of people even know they exist. So if you watch my video, you will know they exist now, and you will know that I am getting a tattoo based off of one of those cards that my wife and son picked. So I'm really happy about that, and I actually might skip starting my left arm to do that tattoo next on my calf, just so that we can have that framed, and the 3 of us will always have that memory together. Just another, family memory, a core memory for my son, just something where he's like, Daddy got that tattoo because I picked it, because he's never picked any of my other ones. And that's going to lead us into the main part of today's video, which is, again, more of non-traditional cards. It deals with propaganda, and propaganda is defined in more than one way. The easiest way, or the way that most of us understand propaganda, is information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. Now, we are fixing to head into 2024. It's not very far away. And 2024 is going to bring about one of the most contentious, possibly dirtiest, ugliest, meanest, whatever adjective you want to put for bad, presidential races that I think that we'll ever see in the United States history. I don't think we're ever going to ever see something like we're going to see next year again. I really hope we do not. I think that, and excuse me, still got a little cough from being cold. Not to be extremely biased, but we have an ex-president who has been indicted on like 100 charges, a lot of them felonies, and he is refusing to back out of the race. The guy that's behind him runs the state of Florida, and he has done a lot of things that I don't agree with, that a lot of people in the country don't agree with in the state of Florida, but people voted him in Just like in 2016, I accepted the fact that President Trump was voted in. I did not, particularly like that, but I accepted it. And that's what led to 2020 when President Trump lost and there was no acceptance of that loss. And propaganda flooded the airwaves, and it flooded into people's brains to the point that they went to the Capitol and attacked our nation's capital. And police officers died, and there was some stuff brought out of that I think that showed the ugliness of our country right now. It showed how propaganda and misleading information, misinformation, and lies can really damage not just people's psyches, but physically end up damaging people. And it still happens. I mean, you got people still fighting, in the streets over Trump versus Biden, and that race was 4 years ago now, folks, or almost 4 full years ago now, the 2020 election. And before that, it was COVID misinformation. There was propaganda against the vaccines, propaganda against the virus itself, people trying to say that it didn't exist. You had Joe Rogan, who's got one of the loudest voices in media, social media, and media in general, bringing on people that were just flat spreading misinformation. Now, you can believe whatever you want to believe. That is fine. But when you start to lie to other people, to manipulate them to believe in a particular point of view, that's when you're getting into propaganda. And propaganda is, I'd say most people, if you think about it, the Nazis, Joseph Goebbels, and what he was able to do to convince not only German citizens, but the troops, that Jews were the reason that they, their country lost World War I, and that they were so poor at that time, and that the Jews were to blame for everything. And the only way to fix that was to exterminate them. And that propaganda was used rather effectively to the point of 6.5 million people being murdered. So propaganda can be extremely dangerous. It can be viewed as almost harmless by some people. Some people just eat it up. They don't know any better. They don't know it's misinformation. They don't know that what they're being fed is trying to take them down a certain path. And, they've got blinders on. But I think if you learn to think critically for yourself, you can see what propaganda is immediately. You know what it's trying to do to you, trying to drag you down a path maybe you don't want to go down. So I just urge every person to, number one, think critically for yourself. Number two, vote. Do what you want to do. Go in that booth and vote for who you want to. But don't let everything around you influence that. Think for yourself and say, this is what I think is best for my country. This is who I'm going to vote for. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't care who you vote for. I know who I'm voting for, and that's fine. That's me. And each individual that's over 18 years of age in this country has a say in where we're heading. Don't let the propaganda that is coming in 2024 sway you and make you make a bad decision, because it is going to be ugly. Social media is going to be very ugly next year. I don't even know if we're going to get debates that are going to be honest. I don't know, folks. I'm telling you, I'm a little bit scared for the future. But at the same time, I'm also hopeful, because we do live in a representative democracy, and, people are going to vote in, I think, who are the best for the jobs, for better or for worse. And we have to accept those results and not have a repeat of what happened on January 20th after the election in 2020, because or January 2021. That was deplored. That was horrible. And we never need to do that again. And the whole world was watching that day, and it was embarrassing. Excuse me. But I do have some collectible cards that I consider propaganda. They date all the way back to Desert Storm. And if you've ever looked at trading cards or seen these cards online, they exist. They're there. And we're going to take a look at just a few of those today. It's not a card opening, We're just going to take a look at some of those and see why maybe it's propaganda, and then that'll be this video. Again, I just wanted to kind of get that out there of, you know, what propaganda is, how it can be used in different media forms. Today, the medium will be collectible cards. And just to urge people to think critically and to be prepared for what's coming in the following year. Because this time next year, there could be a lot of hate being spread on both sides. It doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican, Independent. I think there's going to be a lot of hate spread in this country, and we don't need that. We don't need any more hate. We have had enough in this country's history. It's time that we start accepting one another for who we are, loving one another, loving our immigrants, our beautiful immigrants that come to this country. I live in a neighborhood right now with 2 immigrant Vietnamese families as my neighbors. The man that just moved in right next door to me, his father is migrated from Nigeria to Germany, and then they came from Germany to America. One of my best friends for the last 20 years. His family was a part of the war in Bosnia-Herzegovina back in the day, and they immigrated from Germany, or from Bosnia to Germany, and then from Germany to the United States. And I'm so glad that they were able to get into the United States. I mean, he's an awesome human being, very smart, you know, runs a business, got a beautiful wife. He's married to a dentist. If he watches this video, I hope he does. I hope he knows that I'm being awesome, you know, nice to him, because like I said, you know, our beautiful immigrants, man, my ancestors were immigrants. Unless you were Native American, your ancestors were immigrants to this country. And to be mean to immigrants is just doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't. You know, immigrants, Latino immigrants built my entire neighborhood. I mean, I could go right now. There's 3 houses being built right down the road, and it's Latino Americans down there building. And I say Latino Americans because I don't care if you think they're illegal or undocumented. They live here. They're working here. They're paying taxes while they're here. They're down here building houses. They're busting their behinds. To me, they're just as American as I am, and they should be given some kind of citizenship, by the way. So enough rant on that. So yeah, we really need to start looking out for one another more, ignoring petty differences and coming together on our commonalities. And that will make us stronger and make us be able to get through, I think, what's going to be a lot tougher issues going forward. I mean, you could see with the climate change. If you can't see it with your own eyes, I don't know what else to say to you. If you don't see that there could be another pandemic right around the corner that could, you know, decimate our economy again, I don't know what else to tell you, man. We need to come together, and we need to, you know, go with the all is love philosophy, because all is love, and love will triumph over evil. But just get ready for next year. Be ready to have some thick skin, regardless of who you are rooting for to be president or who you side with, because it's not going to be pretty. But I'm going to show you these cards and give you a quick explanation on some of them. Try to keep this video a little bit under 30 minutes. I know this has been a bit of a long rant, but again, this is just something that rings true with me. I saw the cards online. I knew they existed, but I wanted to actually buy some and bring them in and just talk about them really quick. And also the tattoo thing with my son and my wife picking that. I thought that was just really neat after showing those last night. All right, so let's have a look at these cards. All right, guys, back, and we're going to do, like I said, a quick look at these cards. These cards are made by one of my favorite companies, Topps. And these are it. The Desert Storm cards from the Desert Storm invasion of Iraq. Now, this is when Iraq invaded Kuwait and was basically trying to mess with the oil trade. And President Bush made the decision that they were going to liberate Kuwait. And we liberated the H out of Kuwait. I'll just put it to you like that. And this is in no way, let me go ahead and say this up front, I am not slamming the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, okay? It takes a brave person to volunteer, to put your life on the line for your country, and if you have to go to war, you have to go to war. If you have to do the things that war takes, you have to do them. And thankfully, we have the strongest military in the world. It actually affords all of us our freedom and allows us to do what we want to do. So never forget that, especially if you have veterans in your family like I do. So sorry about the coughing, guys. Just trying to get over the cold. But again, this is not in any way, shape, or form slamming those people. However, there are people that I will not talk nice about during this next probably 5 to 7 minutes. Okay? So this first card that I was going to look at and share everybody is called Desert Storm Slang. Or Desert Storm Slang. Just kind of gives you a little, this is, what they said when they were there. Big Red, the Desert Sun, Bird, Helicopter, Chocolate Chip, U.S. Desert Uniform Camouflage, Mopped Up, Quick Turn and Burn, Smoke 'em to reach a destination quickly. So just wanted to show you that there was, the soldiers had their own type of terminology that they used. I'm sure every war or conflict, this is something that is that happens. And Topps made cards for these guys, a couple of the generals. There's another one. So yeah, they got their own cards. This right here was the main reason I think that we attacked Iraq, the Scud missile. These were the missiles that they could have shot at Israel. I think they did actually shoot some of these at Israel, and they were, Saddam Hussein had used chemical weapons on the Kurds in northern Iraq and killed a lot of them, and they were afraid that he was going to put the chemical weapons into these and shoot them into Israel. So the Scud missile was basically Iraq's #1 weapon, and to be honest with you, it wasn't a great weapon. But I'll show you what was a great weapon. This thing right here. That missile being shot off of that ship right there, that thing could hit a gnat's butt from 10 miles away. So this was, yeah. And this is what our tax dollars pay for, folks. Look at that thing right there. You're probably looking at close to $2-3 billion in ship and planes. This is the USS Eisenhower. This is an old one. I think it's still in use to this day, but they have the newer subs now. There's a Top Gun card. If everybody loved the movie Top Gun, it's the F-14 Tomcats right there. The B-52 bomber. B-52s in formation. There's a Harrier jet. A Prowler. There is the plane that refuels everything in the air. There is the satellite surveillance plane. There's an F-16, F-15, F-14 Tomcat, F-4 Phantom. Again, apologize. There's the A-7 Avenger. If you remember the movie with Owen Wilson, Flight of the Avenger, him and Gene Hackman, that was a good movie. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? Wild Weasel. There's another F-16. FA-18 Hornet, and I think this might have been one of the first conflicts that this was used in. I think this and the conflict in Bosnia may have been the first two the FA-18 Hornet actually fought in. There's an F-15 dual-role Eagle. Here's the tank killer, the A-10 Warthog. Now, I just showed you, I don't know how many jet aircraft that have the capability of wiping out an entire army by themselves. And the Iraqi Air Force did not have anything like that. So they were so overwhelmed via shock and awe that there was no way that Iraq was going to be able to stop us in this war. To me, it was kind of dumb. They could have used a lot less firepower. But they also did this stuff here, carpet bombing. And carpet bombing, to me, should be illegal. It should be in the Geneva Conventions that this never be allowed again. This can take out civilians as well as the bad guys. And this kind of shows you over a city how bombs fell on it. I'm pretty sure this was the first war for the stealth fighter. Remember how cool those were? If you were a kid back then, you always thought the stealth fighter was cool. And stopping the flow of the oil. Because remember, they lit the oil fields on fire, the Iraqis did, as they were leaving. Yeah, just... Here's the Stinger missile card. The Stinger missile, these are what we've been sending to Ukraine, I believe, or a newer version of these to help the Ukrainians fight off the Russian tanks. It's very effective, and it's like I said, if we're sending Stinger missiles still, then there's no reason to make a new one there because it works so well. Here are the Marines actually landing on the beach in Kuwait. Tanks rolling through the sand. There's a howitzer. This thing can hit something from, I don't know how many miles away, a long way away. I'll put it like that. Here is another missile launcher, a Dragon missile launcher. This can take out armored vehicles. Of course, you always lay mines in war. Here is a medical support truck. This is where our men and women of the armed forces lived during that time. Look at these tent cities. And I'm sure they did not enjoy this very well. If you ever saw the movie with Jake Gyllenhaal about this conflict where they were forced to do hydration and take medications and sit around all day because they never really had to do very much as far as actual fighting. Now, in 2003, when we invaded Iraq and the insurgents came in, that's when things got ugly and there was a lot of, house-to-house fighting. But this war, there wasn't necessarily a lot of soldiers, fighting against each other in a traditional type sense because we overwhelmed them so much with air power, naval power, like the missiles shooting off of the ship. It was they almost weren't needed, but they were there anyway, and this is where they lived. And here is a water bag. I mean, imagine if that's how you had to drink your water. And again, thank you to our men and women who, fought in this conflict, who went over there and it couldn't have been easy living. That's for sure. Living in the desert wearing all that. And this is the last thing I'm going to show you is the Patriot missile. This was the one that shot down the Scud missiles. I think we still use Patriot missile batteries to this day. And I think we were even sending them to Ukraine to help stop some of the missiles being shot into Ukraine from Russia. And then there's these flag cards that formed a big puzzle with all of our allies who helped us fight in the war. Yeah, Egypt. And this isn't all of them. There were 20, like Saudi Arabia. I don't know how they're an ally when 19 of the 20 hijackers from 9/11 were from this country. But somehow they're still an ally of ours. Syria and USSR, which that's another crazy one that they were allied with us during that time. So, besides the Topps cards, other people made cards. Now, back in the day, like, in World War II, especially, and in World War I, like, the guys that did the comics in newspapers would always draw up their own little propaganda-style cartoons. And these were some that were drawn up of course, Bush wearing a Superman outfit beating up Hussein. Here he is beating him in an arm wrestling contest. Look at how big his arm is. And here's Bush looking like Rambo taking out Saddam Hussein. And of course, this one he's in a really big tank with the nozzle or with the gun pointed right at his nose. And not to, again, try to sway people or make people feel a certain way, but if you think about this one right here, or this one right here, with the way that Bush is being portrayed, there are a lot of people on the right that are portraying President Trump in the same way, with the same kind of looking like Rambo, riding on a Tyrannosaurus Rex, holding a, missile launcher and a machine gun and looking like he's been lifting weights all day and, wearing the red bandana. And I don't understand that type of propaganda. It's silly. It doesn't, further any cause. It doesn't make anything better. It's just kind of like trying to say that your guy's tougher than the other guy. So, but if you look at President Trump, I think we can all agree that that dude is probably not really tough. He's definitely not running fast, and he definitely doesn't have muscles like Sylvester Stallone and Rambo. And two more cards I'm going to show you. If you remember Desert Storm, you remember this general, General Schwarzkopf. He was the Allied commander. He's the one that led the war, that made the strategic decisions. And he was all over TV and became a very, very famous general due to that war. This is a guy I technically didn't really have a problem with. I mean, he was a general. That's generals lead armies, and he did a really good job at it. They wiped Iraq out. And I'll tell you how they wiped the Iraqi army out. When we got the Iraqi army on the run and they were leaving Kuwait, imagine what a desert looks like. It's sand dunes and mountains and sand. And there was one real highway out of Kuwait back into Iraq. It was pretty much a straight road. So the Iraqi army was in full retreat. And General Schwarzkopf and some other people I'm going to show you here in just 1 second decided that they were going to use a technique called the killing box technique. I read this from a book called Desert Mirage when I was in college, so it is verified. This is what happened. The United States Air Force bombed the very front of the Iraqi convoy. They bombed the very rear of the Iraqi convoy, and then they went up the sides of the Iraqi convoy and bombed it, effectively destroying the entire Iraqi army, all of their tanks, armored vehicles, all that stuff. So they left Saddam Hussein in power for some reason, instead of taking him out then when they had the chance to, him and his two crazy sons. But when we attacked them in 2003, they had no defense against our military. And we knew that. They had never been able to rebuild their military after we used the killing box technique and basically destroyed their invading army that they invaded Kuwait with. So it just goes again, and it just always irks me, is why did we invade Iraq in 2003? I'm going to show you why. Propaganda from these two human beings. Now, General Colin Powell is another famous general. He became very famous because of this war. I would have voted for General Colin Powell for president. I actually thought he was going to run in the year 2000 instead of George W. Bush, the second, George Bush II. And I would have actually voted for General Powell had he ran that year. But in 2003, he was one of the people that lied to the international community and stated that Saddam Hussein was trying to create nuclear weapons. And we know now that that was a lie. He has admitted himself that it was a lie. And I give him mad props for admitting that he lied. But this guy right here, Dick Cheney worked for Ronald Reagan. Dick Cheney worked for Bush 1. When Bush 1 was done being president, he went and became head of a corporation called Halliburton. And then he became vice president under Bush 2. Well, when they attacked Iraq in 2003, Halliburton was given no bid contracts to do a lot of the rebuilding of the infrastructure in Iraq. They also had subsidiary companies that did things like sold Coca-Colas to the soldiers, washed their clothes. There's a very good documentary called Iraq for Sale, and it shows how Halliburton abused government contracts and took advantage of our soldiers during that conflict and made their lives even harder. And not just them. There were truck drivers who volunteered to go from the United States to Iraq to drive supplies back and forth. Some of those people were killed. Their families were not rightfully compensated. Private contractors were killed. He hired Eric Prince, who at the time was the head of Blackwater Security, to do private mercenary type army stuff in Iraq. And they murdered over 30 civilians one day, basically for no reason. Now, I say that because Eric Prince has a sister. Eric Prince's sister is Betsy DeVos. Betsy DeVos was appointed by President Donald Trump to be the Secretary of Education when she had absolutely no qualifications for that job. Betsy DeVos's husband is a billionaire who owns Amway. So I'm just going to tell you folks, all of these people, except for Colin Powell here, because he's the only one that told the truth. This man, especially right here, Dick Cheney, one of the worst people to ever be put in power in United States history because of the abuse that he created through his own actions and through his greed that cost many, many, many lives. So I'm not trying to be extremely political, but Dick Cheney to me is absolutely one of the worst that we've ever had. And I can't believe he was vice president. And I'm just going to leave that there. Because what I'm going to do now is all these cards that I got. And look how many of them there were. I didn't even show y'all, half of them. Like, that's just a lot of cards. I'm going to show y'all what we should do with propaganda and how we should get it out of our lives. Because this is exactly where this garbage belongs. In the garbage. See you later.